Today we are exploring some abandoned locations on an old highway that went from Alberta, Canada, all the way to Long Beach, California. Welcome everyone to Weekend Escapades. Today we are exploring the Bigelow Tunnel that you see behind me and Highway 91, the old Arrowhead Highway, and a little bit of forgotten history that's kind of buried in the desert of Utah and Arizona. Behind me is the Bigelow Tunnel. Now this tunnel was named after Charles Bigelow in the 1920s. Now this tunnel was carved through the Red Hills as part of US 91. It had to go through this hill, as you can see, quite a bit of rock, to be able to create traffic through St. George, Utah, and onward towards Arizona. So this tunnel is approximately 500 feet long, 21 feet wide, and 13.5 feet high at the center. This is owned, I believe, by a construction company. You can see there that this was a tunnel that cars had to travel through both directions to get down to Arizona when the I-15, of course, or before the I-15 was developed. This was the tunnel. And I think people have been going in there a little bit, but you're not supposed to, for sure. You can see it looks like some of it's fallen down quite a bit. They've got it blocked right there, you can see, with metal, so people can't go through. That's what that looks like. But this was the original tunnel. People have found their way through all this razor wire and graffitied it because they've cut a hole through the bottom. You know, one big motor they're storing in there. It looks like a big old cat motor or something that's in there, a compressor, something huge. You can see the razor wire right there. You gotta watch it. But this is the tunnel. As you can see how rough cut it was. Yeah, the ceilings have definitely been falling down in there. You can see some of it up there. And a lot of it's fallen. You can see it right down there. Looks a little dangerous in there. Might even have some daylight just on the other side of this cement. It's falling down behind it. This once was a beautiful old tunnel with many old cars used to travel through it. So what this tunnel did was it aligned St. George, Utah with Washington, Utah. Washington being just a little bit northeast of where St. George is attached. But this was the connecting tunnel between those two areas. Now, above it and beyond is known as Industrial Row. So there's a lot of industrial just on the other side of this tunnel that is actually, this tunnel, the other side, dumps right into an industrial business. Okay, so we've made our way over to Middleton Drive and 1700 East Street in St. George. See right here, they've got this blocked off, but there's actual bridge here that's part of the old highway. And we think we're just gonna hop right over those pylons, walk across that bridge and up that road a little ways. Hopefully nobody gets upset. Okay, so here is the bridge. And I was wondering, because we were looking up on the side hills and you could literally see that there were those, I guess, the cement pylons. And I thought, that looks like it would be the side of a road that they were protecting. This bridge is pretty old. A little bit of large block. The old highway. Moving on. Old Highway 91 was the first paved highway that went through southern Utah. Until the construction of I-15 or Interstate 15 through the Virgin River Gorge, this was the highway going north and south to get from Salt Lake, all the way down to, of course, Nevada and further, all the way through Vegas. This was Highway 91. So much like other old highways like Route 66, Highway 91 had many stops, like filling stations and overnight camps along the way on the highway. This road goes up and over that mesa, around this corner, down the mesa to Industrial, which again was the old highway. But Bigelow Tunnel, right down there, that 500-foot long tunnel. To make it a little bit easier and more accessible for vehicles, they blasted right through that hill. An historical old tunnel, all desert. And they're just developing it now. A little strip mall down below. That wasn't even there a year ago. And that wasn't there 2 years ago. That was just a bare mesa. Everything in this area is being built on, and all of this history is being covered up. This tunnel is still going to remain, even though it's kind of fallen down inside in a couple of spots. Still a piece of American history. Some modern day earth collapsing and covering up the road. Can you imagine how hard it would have been back in the day to keep this road accessible? I mean, if the rocks and things are falling down now with all the excavation and things they can do, this is collapsing pretty good on the old highway. So I'm thinking that's why they bypassed this road. It's fairly steep on top of everything else, and the difficulties of keeping this, I guess, passable. Because right down there on level ground is where they put the tunnel. Right there. That would make a lot of sense. So we've came to the end of where the highway would have continued going. I have no idea from here. I don't think that there was a bridge. I think it continued right up there where the road goes down then. Probably just went right along this hillside before they excavated, and right up there. This is the end of the line. Now, we've heard a lot about, of course, the Arrowhead Trail and Old Highway 91 and the Bigelow Tunnel. But where did the Bigelow Tunnel get its name? Well, the Arrowhead Trail was an auto trail, which was plotted out in 1915 when promoter and race car driver Charles H. Bigelow drove the entire planned route from Salt Lake City to Los Angeles. And the Arrowhead Trail largely followed the path from Los Angeles to Salt Lake City. And this is the road that took over the Beaver Dam Mountains on down to Arizona through St. George. So this is why the tunnel got its name, from Charles Bigelow, the famous race car driver and promoter. Okay, you'll see behind me where they blocked the road. This was the historic highway. I-15 right alongside of it. So I-15 bypassing all of this, it's just going to go right through a neighborhood, a residential. You just have to imagine it that this was the old highway, and then of course modernized, but once was a dirt road. And these are some big boulders, by the way. They really blocked this. My goodness, those are huge. So again, this was the old highway, and then they modernized it, paved it, and this went all the way up and around and over the top of the mesa, and that was before the Bigelow Tunnel. Can you even imagine that old wagons and pioneers, mules, horses, people traveling for a new life on this highway, and now paved and abandoned right over there next to the I-15. They're adding lanes to that every day. Get all the way from Salt Lake down to Las Vegas. Very popular for travelers. And somebody may have lost a tire and a few other car parts along the way. So we're going to head on down the highway now through Santa Clara, Utah. This is one beautiful town full of trees, and they're changing color about now. A lot of pioneer history along the highway. And you'll notice that bridge right there. Looks like the bridge you saw earlier in the video, because that bridge is part of the original highway. And all the bridges were built the same. Along this highway, we're going to find a tremendous amount of old pioneer buildings. Now, we did a video before on US Highway 91, on down through the highway, where all of these local stops and this old church were in there. Now, this is all now on reservation land, and you're not supposed to go on it, but at one time, this was all pioneer homes and buildings. Again, this is all preserved, and we're not supposed to get any closer on this land. Now we're going to head from Utah right down Highway 91 all the way into Arizona when it levels out down here at the bottom of the hills. And you're going to find that this is one beautiful view. And at the bottom, we're going to find another abandoned gas station or service station and a tremendous amount of items around this abandoned location. So, Old Arrowhead Highway, Highway 91, and its historic, I guess, route through the desert, through Arizona, and through Utah. We've shared that with you, but now we found another location roadside. And this looks like another place to get some refreshments, maybe some fuel along the way, because up that hill, going that direction, cars used to overheat going up the hill, so water was very valuable and more per gallon than fuel. So these old rest stops were very important for those old vehicles, and the heat for people to take a rest. Again, littered with cans. You walk just a little bit further away from these buildings, you find a tremendous amount of these cans. And they're all laying right here in the desert. You can see all sizes of these cans. Just about everything. Look like old oil cans, some of these. See them all smashed. They're pretty heavy, actually. Some of them, like they're lined. And a lot of people just use them for target practice. That's definitely an oil can. You can see SAE 30 right on it. I don't know about what year that would be. Maybe somebody knows. Can't see what that says either. Interesting. Old oil cans in the desert from what would be probably a rest stop and filling station. Just kind of walking around where this old filling station or store would have been. Don't see much in the way of other buildings. A lot of these places had little cabins that you could stay and rest roadside after a weary trip down the highway in those old cars that were bouncing. There's another one. That looks like an old STP can with a little top on it. See if we can see what that says. Not much on there. There's another one of the cans with the pull tab on it. I don't know why I find it fascinating. It's kind of like going through an outdoor museum looking at the cans and seeing if you can find any information on them. But there's a lot of them here. But you can tell by how old these buildings are is that people used to just throw this stuff off in the desert. Instead of throwing it away, there was probably no garbage service out here. So they just put them in holes out in the middle of nowhere. Now after looking around a little bit, that is definitely a post for the sign that was here for the building. So probably the original post that maybe they sawed off, because there's another one right here, right across from it. Maybe they broke off the wind. But there's the two posts that probably held the sign for this location right here. Again, this is right against the road where the old highway was. You can see pieces of the wall, just chunks of it laying here, scattered about in the desert. Well, that's going to do it for today. From this roadside attraction here in the middle of the Arizona desert at the end of our journey down Highway 91 in the old historic Arrowhead Highway. And until our next adventure, goodbye from Weekend Escapades. There's a couple of old cans on the wall.